Hi, Teri here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is in this box. It's another fancy fold card. I've used the Happiness Abounds stamp set together with the coordinating Blossoming Happiness dies, and I've also used papers from the Hues of Happiness Designer Series paper pack. Most of the images used on this card are actually die cut from this paper pack, so I haven't used the stamp set to stamp them. I've just die cut them using the Blossoming Happiness dies from the paper and then used those. As I said, this is a fancy fold card and I'm calling it a Concertina Panel Display Card. I've no idea if it's got a proper name. And I think it's absolutely gorgeous. These papers are stunning and all the images on them. And it makes a change to not have to stamp and colour, just cut directly from the paper. Now I did have a small dilemma when I was creating this card, and that was in trying to decide where to put my message panel. I almost put it here, which you could just add a white panel where you could write your message, but in the end I decided to place it on the back. Now I know not everybody will like where this is placed, and it does add to the bulk of the card. If you don't like it here, you could just write around the edge on the back of the card if you don't want to add that panel to the inside, but it's up to you. Now this is how the card looks from above, and it will display beautifully on a mantelpiece. You could either have the inside showing or the front if you prefer that. Now I've already shown you the box. I haven't done another video for this one, I just haven't got time at the moment. So I'm going to put the instructions for the box in the corresponding blog post for this video, and I'll leave a link directly to that blog post in the description below this video. This is a standard box to hold a 6x4 card, but it's deeper than normal. This is an inch deep. The card is that bulky. Hopefully you won't have any problems in creating the box if you need to. If you do, then give me a shout. If necessary, I can do a video later on. So today I'm just going to show you how to create the card. I won't be using these products. I'm going to use a different product suite, so we've got a variation. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, take a screenshot so you can refer to it later. I'll be using Balmy Blue card for my card base. Now ideally you need a piece that measures 12 inches by 6 inches, so half a sheet of 12 by 12 card. But I haven't got any in Balmy Blue. I've got every other blue but not Balmy Blue. So I'm going to create my own. Now you need to cut two pieces, and you can get both of these pieces from one sheet of standard card, whether A4 or 8.5 inch by 11. The first piece measures 4.5 inches by 6 inches, and the second piece 8 inches by 6 inches. I'm going to place the smaller piece with the short side across the top into my Simply scoreboard and score down at 4 inches. Now this second piece will be joined by means of that 1/2 inch tab, and I need to score it at the halfway point, so that's going to be at 4 inches. Now if you're using 12 by 6 card, then you will just score your piece on the long side at 4 inches and 8 inches. Before joining the two pieces together, I'm just going to notch the top and the bottom of that 1/2 inch tab. This just makes the join a bit neater. So I'm just making a very small slanted cut at the top and the bottom. Now you have a choice of how to do this join. You can either place the tab on the front of the card or on the back. If it goes on the back, then it will show on the back. If you place it on the front, then most of that tab will be hidden by the mats. And that's the method I prefer, but it makes no difference to the actual construction of the card. It's just, again, personal preference. I've folded my tab as a valley fold, and then I can make the join. So because I'm placing it on the front, I'm flipping both pieces over before I add the glue. If you're happy for your tab to show on the reverse of the card, then you don't need to flip the pieces over. You can just add your glue and then position the other piece on top of it. Now that first join or score line is a valley fold, and the second one is a mountain fold. So you need to fold on the score lines and then burnish with your bone folder. I'm going to use my stamping trimmer to do the cutting and scoring necessary for the concertina panel. Now I'm placing it into my trimmer with the short side across the top, and I've got that small panel that I added towards the top. I'm lining up the right hand edge at 1 inch, and then I'm going to cut down from 5.5 inches to 10.5 inches, and I'm using my vertical ruler to measure this. So I've positioned the blade at 5.5, and I'm going to cut down to 10.5 inches. I want to now repeat that for the left hand side. So I'm lining up the left hand edge at 1 inch on the ruler, and then my blade is already positioned at 10.5 inches, so this time I'm cutting up to 5.5 inches. So you've got 2 parallel cut lines. Now the rest is scoring, so I've moved my cutting blade out the way. I'm going to open the extended arm because I'll need those measurements. And I've got the long side of my card base towards the top. Now I'm lining up the left hand edge at 5.5 inches. There we go. Now this should bring the scoring blade in line with the start of the 2 cut lines, and all the scoring will be made between the cut lines. Now this is actually 1 inch to 5 inches, but you don't need to measure it. You just use the cut lines as your guide. So I'm lining it up at the top, which is the first cut line, and I'm scoring down to the second cut line. Then I'll just check, because the camera's in the way, that I've reached both points, and then I'll move the card base along to 6.75 inches. Now my scoring tool is at the bottom, so I'm just going to score from there up to the top. So again, you need to score between the 2 cut lines. The third score line is at 8 inches, but you've already scored that one, so I'm going to skip it, and I'm going to move the left hand edge along to 9.25 inch. And again, I'll score between the 2 cut lines, so from 1 inch to 5 inches. Now the last one is at 10.5, so I'm moving the cardstock along, lining up the left hand edge to 10.5 inches, and this should bring the score line to the end of the cut lines. So you should end up with 4 scored panels on that cutout section. This is the True Beauty stamp set. Now the only image I'm going to use today is this tiny little flower head here. And I want to use it to decorate the message mat. So this is the one I'm going to place on the back. My mat is in basic white card, and I'm going to stamp using So Saffron ink. And I'm just going to place this in the bottom left corner and the top right corner. The mat will be placed behind the centre 2 panels on the cut section. So I'm going to flip it over and then centre it within those 2 panels. I can now add my glue, and you want this to be stuck down firmly, and then I can position it where I want it on the back of the card. Now I'm not going to do anything else with this until it's completely dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to pop it back into my Simply scoreboard and just lightly score at that centre point, just on top of the score line that's already there at 4 inches. And this will help it fold later. I can now start to decorate my card, and I'm going to start with all the mats and layers that I need. I have 4 pieces of Blushing Bride cardstock, they're all the same size, and 4 pieces of the Awash in Beauty Designer Series paper pack, all the same size. 3 of one design, 1 of another design. Out of the 3 pieces that are the same, 1 will go on the front of the card and the other 2 will be cut to go around the Concertina panel. The 4th piece of Designer Series paper will go on the inside on the left hand side. The mats for the front and for the inside left panels will remain uncut, so I'm just going to layer these together so there's a border of Blushing Bride showing all the way round, and I'll do that off camera to save a little time. The remaining 2 mats and 2 pieces of paper need to be cut to go around the Concertina panel, so I'll show you how to do that. Now for the Concertina panel itself, you have 4 small pieces of Blushing Bride card and 4 pieces of the paper, and these will be just layered together. So again, I'm going to do that off camera. I'm going to start by cutting the Blushing Bride mats. Now these will be cut in exactly the same way, okay, and they will go on the middle and the right hand panels, and they will have a section from the middle cut away. I'm placing the first piece into my trimmer with the longest side across the top, and I'm going to line up the right hand edge on the ruler at 3/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to cut from the top down to 2.5 inches on that vertical ruler. I'll then repeat for the left hand side, so I'm lining up that left hand edge at 3/4 of an inch. My blade is already at 2.5 inches, so I'm just cutting up to the top. Now I'm going to rotate the card so the uncut long side is on the right hand side, and I'm going to line this edge up at 1.25 inches, and I'm going to cut between the 2 cut lines to remove that section. So you're actually cutting from 3/4 of an inch down to 5 inches, but I'm not looking at the measurements, I'm just lining up my blade with the top cut line and cutting down to the bottom cut line. I'm just checking that I've gone all the way. I need to do a little bit more at the top, and then I can remove that section. That can be used for another project. And that's my first piece complete. So it should sit nicely on the card with an even border of blue showing all the way around. Now I have to do the same for the second piece. So again, it goes into my trimmer with the long side across the top. The right hand edge is lined up at 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to cut from the top down to 2.5 inches. Then I'll line up the left hand side. My blade is at 2.5 inches, so I'm just going to cut to the top. Turn it so the uncut edge is on the right hand side. Line that up at 1.25 inches and cut between the 2 cut lines. This will allow you to remove that small section from the middle. So again, the camera makes it awkward for me to see, which is why I couldn't do it in one go. So that's the second piece done, and it should be completely identical to the first piece you did. Now I can cut the designer series paper pieces. Now you have to be careful when you cut these. They are identical in shape, but you have to take account of the pattern orientation. Now mine's quite straightforward because there isn't really an orientation on this paper design. The left hand piece needs to have a section from the right hand side cut, and the right hand piece has a section in the left hand side cut out. So to cut the left hand piece, I'm going to turn it anti-clockwise, and I'm going to make sure I cut from the correct long edge. To show you how important this is, if we look at the reverse pattern, now if I was using this instead of the pattern side that I'm using, you can see you must cut it, this first piece, from the correct edge. If you cut it from the other edge, your pattern will end up upside down, and you don't want that. So when you come to do the second one, we'll turn it clockwise and cut that long side. Okay, so just think about where you're making the cuts, which piece you're removing, and hopefully then you won't go wrong. Anyway, back to my first piece. I'm placing this into my trimmer, and I've lined up the right hand edge at 5/8 of an inch, and I'm cutting down from the top to 2.5 inches. I'm sorry my head's in the way here. It's very difficult to see with the camera there. Now I've lined up the left hand side at 5/8 of an inch. My blade was already at 2.5 inches, so I've cut to the top. Now I'm turning it so the uncut side is on the right hand side, and I'm lining this up at 1 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to cut between the two cut horizontal lines, and that is from 5/8 of an inch to 5 inches. But I'm not measuring, I'm just cutting between the cut lines. Okay, so that piece can be used on another project, and this should perfectly fit your Blushing Bride section with a thin border of Blushing Bride showing all the way around. Okay, now we're going to do the second piece. Now we're taking the section from here, so I'm going to turn it clockwise this time to make the cuts. I'm lining up that right hand edge at 5/8 of an inch, and I'm going to cut from the top down to 2.5 inches. And it's 2.5 inches on that vertical ruler. Then I'm lining up the left hand edge at 5/8 of an inch, and my blade is already at 2.5, so I'm going to just cut from there to the top. Then I'm going to turn it so the uncut long edge is on the right hand side, and I'm lining that up at 1 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to cut between the two horizontal cut lines. And again, the piece that's removed can be used on another project, and the piece I just cut should lay perfectly on top of the Blushing Bride mat with that thin border all the way round. Now these two pieces can be layered together, and again I'll do that off camera to save a bit of time. I've now gone ahead and layered up all the mats, and I just wanted to point out, because you'll probably notice as I glue them down, that I've numbered some of them, and this is just so I get them in the order I want them to be in, especially these 4 here. I want them in a specific order across the cutout section, so I've numbered them to ensure I get it right. These are all the pieces I need to decorate the front of the card. All the images have been die cut from the Awash in Beauty Designer Series paper, and it's this sheet. The whole sheet is covered in images that you can die cut. These are the Organic Beauty dies that coordinate with the stamp set and the paper, and there is an outline die for each of the images. And you get 2 sheets of this paper in the pack. Now the little gold frond thing on the side was created using one of the other dies in this die set. This is the reverse of the paper. I didn't mind cutting into it too much. Also for the front of the card I have a white die cut mat and a balmy blue mat to layer it onto. Now the white mat was created using one of the stitched rectangle dies, and it's the 3rd size down. I've also embossed this white mat, and to do that I used the Painted Texture 3D embossing folder, which is one of our thicker folders. I've already gone ahead and added dimensionals onto the back of the balmy blue mat. Now I've had to use mini dimensionals because I've run out of the bigger ones, but normally I would use the big ones for this. These mats can now be layered together. Before I decorate my panel, I'm going to fold my card. Now the first score line, as you know, is a valley fold. The second one is a mountain fold on the outside, but it's a valley fold on the inside, on the concertina part. So I'm going to fold the concertina part gently first of all. The first score line is a mountain, the second a valley. Now the third one is a mountain, but that's where we've got that extra panel on the back. So you want to be very, very careful when you form that one. Otherwise you can get cracking on the front. The fourth score line is a valley and the final one is again a mountain. Now if you form them gently, be very careful pressing that middle one. You just want to ease it into place very gently. And then once the card has formed the shape, you can give everything a good press down. And there is the finished card base. Next, I'm going to decorate the inside full panel, and these are the pieces that I've created for it. I have a basic white mat that I've also embossed using the Painted Textures 3D folder, and I've added dimensionals onto the reverse of this. I didn't want to add a balmy blue mat to it because it wouldn't show up on this blue paper, being the same colour. But the white mat is exactly the same size as the one on the front, and it was created with the same die. The gold piece was created using another of the dies from the Organic Beauty die set, and it's this one. So you've got outline dies for all of them, and then you've got these 2 additional dies. So that's the one I used for this piece. This beautiful floral arrangement also came from the paper. I've added dimensionals onto the back of it already. Now this is from another sheet in the set, and you have all of these floral arrangements scattered over this sheet that you can use on your projects. These need to be hand cut though. You can even use the ones on the edge that you've only got a partial image of. If you position them against the edge of something, they will look absolutely fine. So you have lots of options there. And here are all the bits that I use to decorate the final 2 panels and the concertina section. I'm just showing you where I added the dimensionals on each of these pieces. I have 2 leaves here, but this was one die cut piece. I've just separated them with some scissors. I'm going to finish off the card using some of the gold pearls from the Festive Pearl Pack. And I want to add these to the front panel and the full inside panel. And I'm just going to add 3 to each. And that's my card complete. It's very pretty. I think if I was stamping these images, I would have used a few more colours. But I wanted to stay with die cutting from the paper for the complete card. And here's my original card in its box. Another beautiful card. I had a few more images to play with on this one. Remember, the instructions for the box are on my blog. I'll leave a link in the description below straight to that blog post. And here's the box I've created to hold my new card. I've used all the same products. This ribbon is some of our polka dot tulle ribbon, which I think is now retired. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.